modes of expression, perception and recognition of self and other, first through video and more recently through the possibility of transforming analog into digital and using digital transmission, which today form a network capable of theoretically linking all points on Earth. In his view, it is a question of extending human breathing to the dimensions of the cosmos. All breathing phenomena are vital, and it's necessary to master them before anything else. In 1991, he summed up his work in these terms. After painting, I experimented with most media and genres such as sculpture, printmaking, photography, kinetic art, event performances, sound video, computer graphic, etc. I always wanted to express relationships with shifts, zule, intervals, ma, energy, ki, breathing, koku, and the inner world, naimenteki sekai, or with the cosmos. In short, I'm not thinking about the realization of genres or work, but rather I'm looking for a new world of creation that goes beyond the categories of system and genre, according to a content of expression or according to a fusion or a method of fusion of genres and media. Another characteristic of my work is that since the early 70s, it has involved the participation of the public. Based on the philosophy of networks, I communicate over long distances, and my works are therefore a kind of laboratory that interrogates this type of circuit. So meaning is enriched by distance, which far from separating objects, enables them to communicate with each other. The common is only grasped in distance, thanks to the void that makes communication possible. One of the possibilities offered by telecommunication satellites is revealed here by Nam-June Paik. Thanks to satellites, the mysterious serendipity of encounters will accumulate in geometric progression, thus constituting the principal immaterial product of post-industrial society. So Nam-June Paik use of cable and satellite of the void and the gap is intended to put this sense of communication in two images. He is joined on this point by Yamamoto Keigo. Both intend to make the viewer grasp the nothingness that separates him or her from the image that separates one image from another. By refusing any kind of fusional aesthetics, they aim to give each being its own difference. The satellite can be seen here as a means of enabling the image to travel indirectly. It plays on distance and simultaneity, presence, and reflexivity. So thank you very much. I will stop now.
Professor Charles, this was the most highly informative technological.
So I don't know, there's more time, so if somebody have a question, it's also possible to answer.
Yes, we should take some questions. We are waiting for Anastasia Georgaki to join Zoom. Okay, I'll without some. Do you have an adapter for HDMI? Yes. Yes. So we're going to be showing Anastasia Georgaki from her own laptop, and you can all follow it online. You have the link for the online streaming, so you can see the full presentation online and hear it online. You need an adapter.
So, thank you very much, Giannis, for inviting me to this special conference. We have always had the same interest about linking the archaeological sites with new technologies. And of course, you have done furthermore because you have connected that to Japan. And I think this is a wonderful theme. I'm very interested in this idea because I come from Lefkada, and we have celebrated a lot Lefkadio Hern, the poet that has brought the ancient Greek cultures to Japan at the end of the 19th century. And he has been also very interesting, apart the ancient Greek poets, to bioacoustics that I'm going to say today. And I think all that stuff that you have done about this special bridge between Greece and Japan, and their special interest in ancient Greek instruments. And as we see that, I didn't know that they had a lot of interest at the end of the century, the 19th century. I didn't know that. This is wonderful. And now you know that we have a bridge with China, and they play ancient Greek instruments, as we play also Chinese instruments. So I think that's the moment to open this bridge there. And thank you very much for that. And I hope that in May that we are going to organize a special conference on Greece and Japan with Natalia Geraki and many other people. We are going to speak about Takemitsu, but also about these special bridges between ancient Greek culture that Lefkadio Hern and also Iannis Xenakis has brought, and he has gapped this, he has bridged this very big distance between Greece and Japan. So thank you very much. My project, I will speak at the end about our project, that's the Cicada project, the TETIX, but as head of the department, the Music Studies Department at the National University, Kapodistrian University of Athens, but also as a head of the Laboratory of Music and Technology, I would like to tell you, just make a small introduction, which kind of our project in digital works by master students and what we do at the Department of Music Studies. As you know, at our department, we have a very strong sector of archaeomusicology. So we have done a lot of projects on the reconstruction of ancient Greek instruments, conferences on ancient Greek music, and of course, many things that link archaeological sites to the music that has been played 2,500 years ago. So we have a lot of interest in historical systematic musicology, archaeomusicology, Byzantine musicology, music anthropology and ethnomusicology, and music acoustics and technology, music and cognitive science. And now we have a new program on music performance related to the National Orchestra of Athens. Our laboratories at the Department of Music Studies, we have 6 research laboratories. Between them, there are a lot of laboratories that have to do with cognitive science and historical musicology and Byzantine musicology, ethnomusicology. But our research laboratory is the Laboratory of Music Acoustics and Technology. We have a very large studio at the School of Philosophy, 200 square meters. We have a lot of sound engineers and researchers, a big team, and many collaborations with abroad, with many countries in Europe, Norway, Spain, Italy, whatever. We organize a lot of conferences, and we have a lot of PhD students and masters. We have a special master at the laboratory that's new technologies and contemporary practices. In this master, we have a special area, creative media and new technologies, that I'm going to tell you about this project. The research areas in music technology, as you can see, is mostly the voice, the analysis and synthesis of the singing voice, and in a creative way, we speak about augmented voices in modern approaches of ancient theater, and we have 2 PhD students on that. We do experimental archaeomusicology, but also a lot of acoustic ecology and bioacoustics. And of course, as you can see, we have a lot of things that deal with connection between sound engineering, musicology, and creative aspects of music. The research project that we have that
Recording stopped.
Horizon and Erasmus Plus projects, there are a lot. The most important that have to do with creative aspects, I can say that is the one that the name is Messias, how we can make augmented reality for the enrichment of ancient Greek music in the museum. It was in collaboration with the computer science department. And of course, a project that we're going to now to develop, Aura Theater. We have just made the pre-program, which is augmented reality in ancient Greek theaters in order to promote the acoustics of the theaters in a virtual environment, but also the ancient Greek prosody and the way that the actors were playing in these theaters, or were meant to make the theaters alive, to give back life to these ancient Greek theaters through the room acoustics. We have also a project that now is going on, CVIS, Sacred Sounds, Sacred Spaces, where we collaborate with 8 countries through the European University, Madrid, Roma, Glasgow, Stockholm, and many other countries. And every year we visit different archaeological sites, and we record the soundscape, and we try to perform the music that used to be placed in these sacred sites. So we have done the same here in Athens. In Greece, we went to Delphi, and we have interpreted the Delphic hymns, and we tried to show to all the European students which is the first fragment of ancient Greek music notation that is well preserved at the Museum of Delphi. So like that, we combine the space, the history, and the musicological aspects that have to do also with the room acoustics. So this is a very interesting project. This year we're going to do it in Roma. Last year we have done it in Madrid. And in Madrid we find out that there had also a lot of ancient Greek influences through the Roman dominance. So it's very amazing. We find out a lot of things, and our students use a lot of augmented reality technologies. We have also an Horizon project on transforming auditory-based social interaction and communication in AR, VR. And we go on at this master degree, contemporary practices related to the reality. So we have a lot of students the last 6 years, around 12 or 15, that they are doing music for creative media. So which are their projects? Their projects, they combine intermediality, intertextuality, interactivity, and augmented reality through 3D audio aspects in relation with some subjects that have to do with archaeomusicology, ethnomusicology, with theater. We do a lot of sound dramaturgy with new technologies, interactive technologies, historical soundscapes, music and poetry, but we have done also projects with astrophysics and sonification techniques. In this research team, we have Elli Lymperopoulou, who is assistant professor and specialist in 3D audio techniques and augmented reality for room acoustics. Orestes Karamanlis, who is a composer, very well known, and assistant professor at the Digital Arts and Cinema Department. Thanos Polymeneas Londiris, who is specialist also in sound, in theater and sound walks. And Yannis Malafis, who is a specialist in sound engineering. So, which are the creative works of our students? We have done a lot of things for interactive media in the archaeomusicological context. In order to do that, we need specialists in archaeomusicology. And we have Stelios Psaroudakis and Christos Terzis, who are specialists and have done a lot of articles about the reconstruction of ancient Greek instruments. And our students have created some sound installations in the Museum of Corinthos and the Archaeological Museum of Athens related to these findings of ancient Greek instruments. We have done interactive installations also, as I said, related to poetry and music. We have done sound dramaturgy project and interactive media in ancient theater. We have done projects on augmented reality for real-time guidance in historical spaces with 3D audio, interactive sound poetry, installations in museums that link the Western to the Eastern music tradition. I mean museums with ethnomusicological interest, as the Museum of Traditional Instruments at Plaka, because we have a lot of students that play traditional instruments, so they wanted to bridge this gap between the Ottoman Empire and the Greek traditional music. We have done projects on the sonification of solar winds and astrophysics, and the last is many projects on bioacoustic soundscape composition and climate change. And this is what I'm going to focus for finish this talk, is that we have a team for soundscape ecology. And as you know, if we take data from the nature, we can understand how the climate change develops. And one of the most important data is the cicadas. And the cicadas, as you know, in Greece, not in Japan, because they have a different timing, different sounds. They start to come up at the first week of June, if you're outside of Athens. If you're inside of Athens, late June, beginning of July. And there you can listen even today, that's the 20th of October, we have cicadas. This is amazing. They're like Dracula cicadas. They're not normal cicadas. So if you go through to this science of the teticology, the cicadas, you're going to find out that they have their own language, they organize themselves in choruses, and they are lonely cicadas, they are counterpoint cicadas that they speak between them. They have different rhythms, different pitches, and they show us the way to link the present to the past. Because if you go to ancient Greek poets and all the modern Greek poets, you are going to find a lot of witnesses about the cicadas and how they work on our mood. And this is very important. So from the scientific point of view, we can see if we record and we have data, how we can create a soundscape ecology about climate, about natural soundscape patterns and human. But most important is to speak about this project just for 5 minutes and finish. The project TETIX at the Laboratory of Music Acoustics and Technology at the Music Department of NKUA, it has the scope of creating a database from recordings to different archaeological sites. Why archaeological sites? Because we don't have noise. And we can have better recordings. So one of the places we have started is the Platos Academy. And we are doing acoustic macro analysis, rhythmic patterns like speed, tempo, irregularity. We explore the polyphony, antiphony, and counterpoint, and of course the amazing cicada chorus that they start slowly, slowly, but they finish all together. And you wonder if there is a maestro that guides them to finish immediately. So this is a miracle of the nature. And like that, I had a lot of researchers abroad that they were interested in that. We're doing acoustic microanalysis of different types of calls because they have hymns, phrases, antiphonies, ostinato, and chorusing. We collaborate with entomologists in order to tell us what to do, not from Greece, but from France, because in Greece we went to the Department of Biology and they told us we don't study the cicadas because they are not harmful and they are not useful. So they are not like the mosquitoes, they are not like the bees, I don't know. So, and we do a lot of projects about, as you are going to see, the synchronized chorus. Again, Xenakis. Again, Xenakis here. We speak all the time about Xenakis, and for the next 100 years, we are going to speak about this amazing source of inspiration in all the kinds, because he was using music in the time, so no time, antiquity, and the present. So he has made a lot of bridges about the sounds, the music, the culture, and the history. And this is amazing. So Xenakis has parallelized the cicadas from the point of sociobiology and how the cicadas are anarchists, if you want, but they can organize all themselves in order to have a name, to gain the females. All the males, they gain the females. And after they die. So if you go to sociobiology, you're going to see different kinds of sounds from the ants that we can sonify them, and the cicadas. The cicadas, they are organizing in choruses. This is very important. And this is very important also for the human beings. This is the reason he speaks about the stochastic modeling of the cicadas as the stochastic modeling of the voices in a manifestation. So here you see, he says, collisions of hollow rain with hard surfaces, murmuring of pine forests, the song of cicadas in a summer field, political crowds or dozens of hundreds of thousands of people. So this is also the reason that we try to create a network of cicada songs through streaming. This is our future work, and we can do it with Japan, because now I will put you the cicadas from Greece and from Japan, and you're going to see that they are totally different. They have a total different behavior, but they have also choruses. So what's the point? We have a project that will be developed in 2 years with South Africa, and we must find a moment that they have cicadas, because when our cicada starts, their cicadas stop, because it's a different climate, a different time of the seasons, and with the States and with Japan. So through live streaming, we are going to explore the behavior of the cicadas in order to understand how do they listen in Greece. Δεν ακούγεται. Δεν έχουμε. Έχεις Jack, Γιάννη. Okay, you know the Greek cicadas. Japan. No, wait. Just. You listen, Έχεις ένα Jack να το βάλουμε. Okay, and there you can see that in many countries they have different sounds. In New Zealand, so we have different type of cicadas. For this reason, with a researcher, which is my collaborator and now works at the IRCAM, who is a specialist in music and AI, Daniel Brown, we have developed an application where we can upload the sounds of the cicadas or simulate the sound of the cicadas. So sampler and synthesizer at the same time. You can see that. So there you can see we can upload the samples of the cicadas, and you can explore the parameters of the rhythms, of the speeds. And whatever you see there, it's a tree. Every tree has 8 cicadas. We can make a tree with 11 cicadas, with 12 cicadas. Because if you don't have trees, you don't have cicadas. And this is another project for the fires. If we go to the places that everything has been burned, we are going to see that the soundscape has changed, and so all the ecological balance of the area will change, because no birds, no cicadas, no sounds, no well-being, and this is very important. So if we go like that, we can simulate the cicadas, and here you have 1 tree, 2, 3 trees, and in every tree you can upload at least 20 or 25 samples of cicadas. And like that, we can see what happens if we are going to exterminate the cicadas that are the witnesses of the god, as Plato is saying in Phaedrus. Thank you very much. If you have any questions about the project, you can tell me. We have a lot of projects of our students that are uploaded at the music.uoa.gr YouTube channel, and they have done a lot of installations in many places. So if you have any questions, please tell me. Okay, very well. Yes. So. No, we know them very well. We know the works of other researchers and musicologists. I know someone that is playing clarinet with the periodical cicadas. But they are totally different from ours, and they don't come every year, because our cicadas come every year, but the ones that were this year have been buried for 4 years. In the periodical are 17 years. So you understand there are a lot of species, but there you must collaborate with entomologists, that they tell you more, and we tell them more because they don't know the sounds. So this is a very good collaboration for climate change. And I think that in the future we're going to explore the cicadas of LFCs, if you have enough trees, we say that, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ, Anastasia. We will have a discussion of half an hour at the end of this panel discussion for the public. Now, our last speaker for this session is Martin Carlé, postdoc and doc at the same time. I trust you can do your... You can take your HDMI. Yes, good luck. We are waiting for you.
So, good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to reflect a little bit about these things that are actually performed and presented here Now I cannot see my screen, so I have to look there and speak, and also change the images at the same time, so it's a little bit less optimal, but we will go. So the title is All Our Tech is Kind of Frugal. And since we're here at the Mystery 91, at the Magnetic Dance panel, we are actually asked or supposed to speak with the voice of the European capital of culture. So, and here they even say, well, it's in its native land. What is this native thing about? What is so native? What is the cradle of culture in Greece? What is it about? And what would it mean today? This is difficult. This is very... So the organizers of LFSIS 23 came up with three main thematic axes: mysteries of transitions. And I will pick them up. I try to pick them up with 3 times repeating my title and putting emphasis on different words. So we have people and society as one mystery of transition. We have labor and environment, and we have to develop a sustainable legacy beyond. So is that also going in 2 directions, like the other 2, or not? They say it's a sustainable legacy beyond the boundaries of this title here. So all our tech is kind of frugal. The first thing that comes to mind is something simple, something economic, what frugal means. And I'd like to go back at my beginnings, even actually our beginnings, with the next project then, that is about doing projects here, stumbling in the high-tech pool, which even has in the title a rather frugal understanding, a humble understanding in relation to technology. There is an image that, yes, that I just found, still a poster. It was in a swimming pool in East Berlin, and we put sensors to the walls, and there was an amazing rubber man dancer that went from walls to walls, tichos, and was triggering sounds. This was a collaboration with Giannis and with James McCartney, the author of Super Collider. In those days, it was not just live coding. It was kind of live coding, but it was also a real Super Collider hacking, since it was before version 1. iGate is another old project that has even made it to a publication in 99. The other was 97, I think. And it is actually, it went to Japan. That was actually happening in Tokyo in the Spiral Gallery. And it looked like this here. It's a gateway, concave gateway, where you could go through. A little bit more complicated, the sensors, self-made sensors, ultrasonic sensors mounted on a step motor so it could scan the room. And infrared sensors were also there. And it was mounted. I think here it's kind of visible. At the four corners, so these towers, these little towers in the middle, is the schematic scheme of the gate. And this is actually a MAX patch. So not MSP, those days it was just MAX. But a very crucial experience was that this was hell of complicated. We had 4 times the same thing. The sensor needed to be controlled. And it was a nightmare as soon as it went a little bit more complicated, like in this scenario, to deal with a graphical means of programming, like we see it here, or even there, but I think, yeah, here this is significant because it shows, this is the whole patch, no cables anymore visible, because these boxes are actually little language modules. They run Pyrite, which is the language of Supercollider, actually, minus the audio part. So it could be solved, it could be handled only by using a different kind of technology. So, or a shift in medium. So what is the frugal thing about? Is it that less is more? Frugal innovation is maybe the most popular notion where frugal is used. And it equals frugal engineering. There's this quote, you can find on Wikipedia or you find it in other sources too. Frugal engineering is archiving more, achieving more with fewer resources. So, okay, that model fits our development possibilities pretty well. But is that all about it? I mean, okay, I jump now to last year, December. Here we have a truly frugal production of 2-3 months only in a, let's say, constraint-based environment, which is Greece. It is Xenakis. Xenakis is all over the place. Xenakis Network Performance Marathon. And just at the metadata, and I don't go into details here further, 17 performing groups with heterogeneous technological setups, but also network setups that were distributed in 8 countries. We had to synchronize them. Each group had to collaborate at least over the network with another colleague. It ran more than 8 hours, 3 live streams, and. It's more interesting to see and report a little bit about the experience that I could make together with Vasilis Ionianakis, who is also here at the back here at the desk at the moment. There was a kind of industry gate XP module, high frequency transfer module for wireless communication that just did not fit the room. It was not working, and we had to replace it ad hoc by something else. And that went really frugal in the sense that there was no money at all to buy some real proper radio technology. So we could find, okay, the Panteion is a smartwatch that allows, it is actually open hardware, it is open OS, it has an open software, open apps, so you can get a hold of all that. But these are based in the US, they were sold out, you could not get them, but luckily enough, there was at the consumer market a similar model with the same processor, and we could open it up and by resources found on the net and further research, actually hack that device and install the OpenOS and finally our application in order to get proper sensors with which we could have 8-10 dancers being equipped. And it was special to have this, to work with these dancers, different than any other experience I had before, that they were really keen on trying out things. They were young, they wanted to check it out at the spot, they tried their movements, we changed the code, and they discovered other things we couldn't foresee. And that was the typical dialogue then that you might also experience here, this creative process of exchanging, giving feedback, and so on. But we can also extract some properties of that working process that I would say, okay, you mess around with technology, that's pretty frugal, but then there's also the necessity to have a kind of sandboxing. Things must not break. They need to be restartable. They should not do any harm to your machine. You need to change quickly things. Then you need to have easy reproducibility. You need to be able to immediately roll back things that don't work. And it's also involving constant notes taking. So this is for the record as a working requirement in this condition that went rather fruitful because it changed the roles. The dancers started all of a sudden also to take notes of the sounds. They understood what we had as setups. They started and said, well, we also want to change that setup. We want to change our expressiveness, our ways, how we can express ourselves by actually changing the code, the setup, later the code. And Vasilis was actually getting into dialogue with these dancers that then started to use their own setups, started to kind of take their mobile phones and do their own switching after all. So the roles were breaking up, the typical ones, and that was, I think, a very interesting and experience of that has a quality of model building to keep as a record here. And then there is these learnings or things that have been experienced were put together and discussed with even the title Frugal Strategies and Cultural Impact of Technology on ISEA in Paris, with a lot of panelists that are all named here, and many of them are actually also here. And their frugal innovation is actually kind of defined like the combination of technical skills, economy of means, and an intuitive approach to technology. I'm not so sure if intuitive is actually anything that mapped my experience and is even something that you want to have or that leads you anywhere. It's rather a literate performative in the loop methodology, as I described it before. And also important, is that we need to see that we are constantly replaying nearness and distances through this technology. Namjoon Paik was quoted that had symbol space. It's actually, we are using surveillance technology all the time. This is actually what we are doing in a frugal manner. And we think we should be aware of that, since this has implications of what our aesthetics is about and where this art could go to. So I'm shifting to the stress on tech. All our tech is kind of frugal. And by tech, I now also mean not only technology, but also the ancient Greek understanding of techne, that is in this case in art. And I was struck by the description of Iannis Zannos that now has a very nice exhibition running in Athens, Sonic Odysseys. It's the most extensive exhibition that far, and it's in his native land. His nativeness, the significance of that one, was captured by this quote I would like to read to you. Instantly recognizable, despite being in a state of constant reinvention and revolution, his radical music is in essence a reference to antiquity, an ode to nature and the elements, a tribute to modernism at its most extreme, and is visionary in its use of technology. So he has been described as an ultra-modern composer, and I think that's really very specific to him. After the Second World War, after his experiences, what did he do? He went further after having drastic, unheard types of clusters of sound moving around to polytopes. The polytopes are aesthetically a further development, installations of aesthetics of war, very drastic, very condensed, and you see of these multimedia installations a real difference to, let's say, the Gesamtkunstwerk of Wagner, where, as Solomos, very well-known theoretician and musicologist, specialist on Xenakis, said, well, we are facing with Xenakis and all in the 20th century a movement from music to sound. It's his title, 2-year-old book, From Music to Sound. But I guess Wagner, with his Gesamtkunstwerk, was even at the level of sound. So it's different. It's something else that happens here. And I'd like to put that question to you. I have some ideas. We can discuss them maybe later on. What is the significance that I think is very nicely captured here by this quote? What is quite different to today's situation this is actually, you can see that in Emst. It's UPIC. It's a graphical desk where you can enter as big as an architect needs to have it and is used to have it, to draw notation, to draw some kind of graphical sceneries, and it will be translated to music. That's something 1977, 1978, I think, was at first time really usable, and he actually composed his first graphical score for a performance here in Greece for the polytope in Mykinai, Nomos Alpha, I think it's called. So computers were hardly anywhere, and I would like to contrast this with UBIC, also UBIC against UBIC, and this is also a very famous notion, ubiquitous computing. It stems from Mark Weiser, Axios Park, already 1991, and it's a new way of thinking about computers that would vanish, would go in the background. And by that respect, he would like to take account of the human world. Is that taking account of the human world? And the most profound technologies in his eyes were those who disappear. So, like the car, the computer and the car. Is that a good comparison? His vision is then, rather than attempting to reproduce these objects in a virtual computer world, leading to another desktop model, I want to put the new kind of computer out in this world of concrete information conveyors. So we are back at what we have on stage. The stage we are walking through all day, at all time, is actually made up by similar technology. It's tracking us, it's spotting us, it's taking information from us. This ubiquitous computing vision has become quite a reality, and I think it's a very, very different type of world and condition we are living in comparison to Xenakis. So we need to question, I think, to what extent he can still be a role model for today. So that shifts then for the final reflection and conclusion, yes. The question to what is all our tech is kind of frugal, and can frugal innovation, as we had it before, not been seen more like a reverse innovation? Like it is one understanding of that term and notion already. As I need to conclude, I cannot go into details here. Here pops up actually this starting paper for, as Giannis described it so nicely beforehand, we started to think about what is actually necessary that we do in our current situation, technological-wise, but also artistic-wise. And we went back to epiblocky, so weaving and rhythmical patterns that are present also in ancient Greece. The same thing has been done by, similar thing has been done by MacLean at the same year. And we are probably actually both in depth to Vasilis Iomianakis, who had mentioned such an idea in his doctoral thesis, that he had reported to MacLean a year before or something, and he's also a student of Iannis Zannos, so we have good ideas here to pick on. And the only, maybe last or question I would like to throw is that stems from my experience when I went to the International Art Conference this year, in April this year, and it was like a watershed kind of experience. I saw very different people there than I used to know in the old days, 10 years back, let's say. I'm an old-timer in that respect also. And it was also amplified. So the meaning of life was questioned. Programs without users. That was MacLean and Julian. These are the most prominent developers of software for live coding that is very well known and widespread, and people start to use these software. And these two people talked about an aesthetics or a self-understanding of live coding as programs without users. That is kind of far-fetched if you see that most of these people were not starting a blank slate, so empty screen, starting live coding from scratch, but actually had full slate. Everything was prepared, and they became a kind of code DJs. The music was kind of good, mostly, but it is a very different way of performing. And we are seeing a genre coming up that has changed over time quite a lot. So, okay, I close here with coming back to what I detected as a working model that is sustainable, that is actually something that could go beyond the title year. That is this unreasonable effectiveness of plain text. If you standardize all on plain text, you get these features I was talking about before. You don't have changing tools all the time. So we need to get frugal about our tools. This is really important, not to get hooked on any kind of development environment, not having all these helpers and tools and everything that are off in 2 years. Then you're trapped in software, deprecated apps. This is not sustainable. We cannot build something on that. Okay, I think, yeah. If we get back to significance of Greece, ancient Greece, what it kind of leads to as a sustainable artistic practice that has value in education and research too, it would be nothing less than a secondary literacy revolution that need to happen, and we should take care about our children or the younger generation especially, but also with our artistic processes and projects to think and bolster this forward, I think, because only then we will get to something that Xenakis had achieved with his radical ultramodernism. Thank you for your attention.
Martin, thank you very much. This was a most appropriate theoretical roundup of what we are doing. Student of a student of Hitler's. Okay. We are just, we have only 30 minutes for taking a coffee and relaxing, and we come back at 4 o'clock to continue with the rest of the panel.
θάνατος.
Με δάνεικα, λόγια δεν τα καταλαβαίνω. Όλα που γεμίζει στο μυαλό, όλα αυτά που αποφεύγω. Όλα την αράζουν τα παιδιά, μα παθαίνουν ροζανά. Δεν με το κόσμο από ψηλά. Πάλι μου μιλάς με δάνεικα, λόγια δεν τα καταλαβαίνω. Όλα που γεμίζει στο μυαλό, όλα αυτά που αποφεύγω. Όλα την αράζουν τα παιδιά, μα παθαίνουν ροζανά. Δεν με το κόσμο από ψηλά. Λάβεις αφήνα στον ήχο. Είχε φουσκάκι, δεν σπάει και πάλι στον τοίχο. Έχω δίνω που είναι μικρή και πως έχω το στίχο. Αυτή να πάρω στην πλατεία τότε να μην πετύχω. Άμα θέλουνε το πίπι, παραπαγωγή και φυσικά ολίγρα. Και λίγα στα σημερώματα, χωνορά και πίνω νύχτα. Πως τότε πάλι το έκανα, ήμουν αυτά τη νύχτα. Απ' τη νέα Φιλαδέλφια σπίτι μου μάνα, όλοι μολύτως στο πέρατο. Σε κανένα μπρο, ένα δω. Πέταρο, στο ταμπλό, πως βλέπω εδώ. Για ραπ, στο καλό το μπουμπάπ.
Thank you for waiting, for being here, Satoru-san. This was excellent. After your talk and Charles' talk, the other talks were also very interesting. And now we are ready to start.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Yes. The rest of the program is first there is a group presentation by Nikos Bubaris of the University of the Aegean, who is a sound specialist and sound artist, together with his colleagues from other universities in the same university, Dana Papachristou and Yorgos Samantas. And they're going to talk about how they work with sound art, especially since they did a sound art, a geolocative project here in Elefsina, which is actually live right now. And it was part of the project. And actually, I used the sounds from their research, especially for Elefsina, both in Izutsu and mostly also in what we just saw. They were playing with the sounds in Tokyo, and also here we were playing with the sounds that they recorded in Elefsina mostly, and for another part also in Andros. And it was a reference to water because Yorgos Samantas is specializing on the water element in contemporary acoustic ecology as part of the ecological catastrophes that are happening and the relevance of waters here locally for Greece. And this is going to be his PhD thesis. So yeah, they're about to come on, and after that we will have a kind of interval with Apostolos Loufopoulos, younger colleague who is a composer. He will give us an idea of how he sees it from the composer point of view, the technology and theoretically and philosophically in the stream of aesthetics of electroacoustic music, Simon Emerson, etc. And then our evening will close with Peter Nelson, who has a reference to our dear Lefebvre, Henri Lefebvre, one of the origins of our inspiration here. So yeah, it's about time to, yeah. Okay, so there will be no pinning actually, because this will be live here without, oh yes, I will pin myself so that people can see you here. Okay. Yes, welcome. So pin for you. Pin, pin, pin. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here after the small break. I give the floor to Nikos Bubaris, and we all have a discussion together.
Hello, thank you for being here. My name is Nikos Bubaris. I'm a member of the Akoo.o group, together with Dana Papachristou and Yorgos Samantas. I'm going to say a few things, just a brief introduction to audio walks. I will start saying a few things talking about walking, and then I will add the audio layer to walking. Then Yorgos will speak about our artworks of the Akoo.o group, and finally Dana will speak, will elaborate on the audio walk, which is presented in the framework of Mysterion and Diana magnetic dance. I think nowadays it's getting more or less easier to talk and realize the importance of walking both in our everyday life and in creative and artistic production. In Greece, recently, we witnessed strong debates on the so-called Great Walk of Athens during the municipal elections. And this is a sign of the growing importance of walking in designing urban life, contemporary urban life. There is a term, walkability, which is a tool or a technique of contemporary urban design and recreation that aims at creating places with multiple value for users. And in Elefsina, there have been, as far as I know, quite a few cultural events, walking events, walking theaters, walking opera. There was a walking opera, I think, last May. And in either case, what's becoming obvious is that walking is a technique or a practice, cultural, artistic practice, that brings us closer to the environment. Through walking, we feel that we are an organic part of the environment. We feel closer, we interact with the environment, we see, hear, touch, smell, meet people accidentally. We come across with events. That's why probably when we visit a city for the first time, we prefer walking in the streets of the city rather than driving or using another means of transportation. So this experience of walking is further enriched and strengthened with the use of mobile media and digital technologies. I think the most important characteristic and thing is that these media are mobile, because we have been used, at least in Europe, for the last 3-4 centuries, since the advent of the printed book and the dissemination of reading, printed texts. We read, we see films, we work, we entertain while we're sitting on a chair. And through that, we think like we depart from movement in a direction that we think that movement is prone to disorder. So if we want to get know to what is going on about ourselves or whatever, or even to create, we have to be disassociated, disconnected in places that are isolated or very well bounded, separated from the public space. So mobile media move towards the opposite direction. It's a way to bring us back to the environment and start interacting and enrich our relation. And especially audio media, and when we say audio content of media, that is music, voice, soundscapes, other sounds, together with narrative forms of storytelling, like for instance, interviews, when people speak about their life, and fiction, like radio drama or others, create another dimension, like a fifth dimension of the space. So in audio walks, people are equipped with a mobile device and a pair of earphones, headphones, and they go out and listen to a carefully designed and created audio content that, as I said before, could vary in purpose, in form, but the aim is the same, just to create some sort of a mixed reality, that we say, to feel like being in the physical space, and at the same time have another dimension experience of this place. Now, I don't know if we have time. I mean, there are many works, audio work, but I just want to mention just one, which is very topical nowadays. It's the Gaza Tel Aviv, created 20 years ago by a group called, if I'm right, Dislocative Tourism Agency. And in this work, people from, let's say, Tel Aviv would walk in the streets of Tel Aviv, and they would listen to narrations of people who live in Gaza. So people who lived in Gaza, they would start saying that now I'm here in the street, on the left I can see that, on the right I can see that. If I go further down the road and, let's say, turn on the right, I will meet that and that and that. So, and it was the other way around. People who lived in Gaza, they would hear people lived in Tel Aviv. So this is just an indicative example of about the politics and the dynamics and the cultural significance of audio walks. So I would say I would better stop. We could come back and talk later if you want to ask something. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikos, for the introduction. And thank you all for being here. And also thank you for having us. And thank you, online participants as well. So after the thanks, I would like to go back to the history of our team, Akoo.o, which I believe in 2024 will be becoming 10 years old as a collective, let's say. So throughout those years, we kind of caught the whole development of what we call today locative media, geolocative media, and followed its various stages. With works that either rely on this technology or kind of try to also challenge or question it. First, I should say for non-Greek speakers that Akoo means I hear or I listen in English, written with 3 O's, which doesn't really make sense like in terms of spelling, but it does resemble or means to resemble the ways we imagine how sound, how to visualize how sound diffuses or propagates through the air in circles. We first became familiar with this technology through group work, a workshop with a group called No Tours, now an obsolete technology, but it was a workshop that gave us the basic tools of understanding and thinking and working with space, sound, and the body, and all those technologies, smartphone mostly technology, or satellite technologies, that enable authoring or composing or designing all those 3 or 4 aspects together. But by also learning how to use those things, we also got a huge inspiration to also teach those things through other workshops to more people. So beginning with, I think, our first work, before even Akoo.o were born, it was a work called Einander zu hören, statt Geschichten, made mainly by, curated by Goethe Institute in Athens, 2013. And it was a work that's subtitled City in Transition and City in Change. And that was a collection of, I think it holds a world record of duration. I think the whole recording, if you walked it from the beginning to end, it lasted for 26 hours. And was a collection of 11 artists working together. So this was also a platform where our territories, our parts of the city we composed, were in contact with. Further, we started working a lot with workshops and addressing particular audiences, specialized or not so specialized audiences. So we also went for a 5-day workshop in a conference called Hybrid Cities, which also brought about the working with a smart city, working about how would you say, the proliferation of those technologies in urban environments, and how and what questions can we pose by using also those technologies. We've traveled sort of throughout Europe with that. In Edinburgh, Innovative Week, we're working with the sound designers. So the main concern was not about listening or recording, but how to compose all those things together. In other occasions, even working with children sometimes, we begin by building our own mics. So we really focus on the mediation technologies together with the end result, which is, you know, an audio walk. I should also stand in a work in 2015, I believe, the year that was celebrated by the publishing of the book Invisible Cities of Italo Calvino, and that was really based on ethnographic research and interviews with people, various perspectives of the city of Athens, by people who were not born in Athens. That was also located in a very nice park in the center, in front of the National History Museum. A promenade, actually, a French garden designed to be walked. So the ways in which we thought that narrative, oral histories, personal histories would be brought into space was really in contact with the architecture. And how do you negotiate all those things? Do you think of it in terms of design? Do you think of it in terms of narrative? Do you think of it in terms even of a musical composition? How do you bring all those things together? Further, we collaborated with an exhibition called Outtopias, and that was in Museo Benaki Museum. Outtopias was the Greek participation in the Prague anyways, every 5 years, and it was about scenography, public space as a scenography. And the idea there was to create a sound walk that would take people outside the museum, go around and see how the museum works as a resonating chamber. In what things does it give value to, and how does what keeps outside? And then the idea was also to encourage people also to hug, to touch, to stick their mobiles on the walls of the museum, because again, the mediation technology the mediation of technology is very important to us. Maybe I shouldn't go too much longer with a biography, because we're running out of, we're a little bit. Maybe something I do want to say about exactly this mediation of technology, because it relies a lot on what Martin was saying just before about all those, the idea of omnipresent computing systems and networks. I find it very, very important that although we desire or we think of it as flawless, as something that's supposed to work as a constant stream of information, the most interesting parts of it is when it doesn't really work properly. It's when you get noise, or you get latency, or something is not working as expected. And this is where all these media are brought in play, and this is where the, let's say, third or fourth wall is broken down and makes you realize that we're not simulating any experience. It's the whole experience of walking with this, for example. that's brought into play as an artistic, let's say, experience result. Maybe you should give the floor to Dana.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to both my colleagues. I would like to add to what you were saying, just like as a bridge to what I want to say today about the specific audio walks, sound walks, is that we have been working a lot also with workshops and with trying to find a more socially engaged meaning in the things that we are doing. So in this sense, we have not done just ready-made works coming from exhibitions, like you mentioned, the Benaki exhibition, but also we have been working in children's facilities, in Chania for children that are currently without their parents, or we have been working with the deaf and hard of hearing in special schools for the deaf and hard of hearing, or the National Opera. So there is always, I think, an attempt to somehow give knowledge, take back knowledge, because narratives from various people are not something that we can impose upon as a ready-made artistic result. So having said that, this specific sound walk was not one of these cases. We did not do any workshops with locals here in Elefsina. On the contrary, we tried to stay as abstract as we could, especially because this was a part of a larger project that was like the concept of Iannis Zannos, Mystery 91 magnetic dance. So we tried to somehow take this event and take this dance, data, composition on stage that Iannis Zannos has been working on for so many years, and try to put this outside. In a sense that we could combine the public space of Elefsina with something that is kept inside walls, like this ex-bowling event. And so in this way it can become accessible to everybody. It can be combined with soundscapes of the area, very specific soundscapes. And we also added an extra layer of songs, narrations of ourselves from important mythological let's say, elements of the history of Elefsina, like it's the hymn to Demeter, the goddess, like it is songs in popular culture that have been talking about Elefsina, like Nikos Goussot song, for example. And we try to somehow combine all these elements with the sounds of magnetic dance. The sounds that we took were from rehearsals, and namely the open rehearsal that happened in 2022 here in Elefsina. We didn't have the time yet to add the new sounds that we recorded from this series of events this weekend, but we will very soon. And very practically, because I don't want to take much of your time, and because my colleagues spoke so wonderfully about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So very practically, we have worked with Echo's platform, echos.xyz. It's a platform that can be found freely in Google Play or in whatever you use depending on your mobile phones. It can be downloaded freely. All you need is a Wi-Fi or a 4G where you can just take the data. There is no subscription, and you also need to enable geolocation. So in this free platform, we have pre-assigned all the sounds that we have recorded, that we have composed, that we have narrated, or all the soundscapes. We have pre-located them in specific areas in this specific song, in the specific sound walk. It's in the entire city of Elefsina, so you can walk for hours if you want. And so by using your mobile phone and enabling location, you can walk around freely with no specific path, with no specific map on your mind, and you can hear all the sounds. You can hear the event on the outside, you can hear the soundscapes that we recorded when we recorded them, and you can also hear Lito Messini singing and narrating various elements connected to Elefsina. And you can walk freely in a more geographical, psychogeographical way of getting to know the city. This is something that anybody can do at any time. These sound walks exist now for 1 year, and they will keep existing even if long after the cultural capital is here, which I hope that is not very soon, but still. And we also have mobile phones for people that are not very familiar with technology, so we have them accessible. You can, right now you can find them on the desk, and if you feel that you don't want to download something on your phone, then you can use them and navigate freely. I think we should... yeah, of course, and there's also a QR code that you can scan. But I guess that if somebody is not familiar with a QR code, yeah, I better take the phones that we have here available for you. That is all. I don't know if there is any question or how we can proceed. So we go to the next speaker.
Apostolos Lufopoulos, colleague. Thank you very much, Dana. And thank you very much for the projection. You're going to present from this? Okay. Okay. You can take this. Yes, you can take this. Yes. Αν έχεις ήχο θα πρέπει να αλλάξεις. Θα αλλάξω. You speak through here.
Hello. Just a second to check the sound, and we're ready. Σου δίνω λίγο ήχο, Όχι. USB. Ξαναδίνω. Headphones. Okay. No sound. We have sound? Okay. We also have a little buzz, but it's okay. Good afternoon. I'm Apostolos Lufopoulos. I'll try to be quick. I'll just want today to highlight some issues concerning the communication between composers and performers. Basically, communication between musicians, people who create sound, and people who dance. So I have a lot of sound to play and image, so the words I'll just highlight some examples. But here I have this diagram with some keywords. Of course, the word soundscape is basic and defines the sound of a place. Sound shapes, electroacoustic music, paralinguistics, environmental sound. These are things related to creative people of the sound. And then we have bodyscapes, body shapes, physical theater, dance, mimesis, etc. So on the left, we have someone like a composer having to do with these sounds, and on the right, we have a performer to understand. But in order to work together, they both need to understand everything. So a question arises. Sometimes it's a problem, sometimes it's a creative problem that brings new information and new creative ideas. How are they going to communicate? How are they going to speak a common language? If we talk in terms of music, I'm a musician, okay, I can talk about notes, about intervals, about staves, but a dancer does not necessarily understand this. Again, the dancer can talk about physical theater stuff or things related to the body. So I will try, from my own experience as a composer, to highlight these ideas and to give ground for thinking from some examples taken from two projects that I've been working through the previous years. Two projects concerning composition of electroacoustic music and physical theater. In these projects, to summarize these terms I just mentioned before, we have some soundscapes which go accordingly to bodyscapes and sound shapes and body shapes. I'm thinking about these definitions. They're very important. So a soundscape, as we all know, it's a sum of sounds that define a space, very briefly. It's a sound recording or a sonic reference to a space, like in music. It can be real or imaginary, and it can be something like a background ambience in a theatrical performance, the soundscape of a scene, or the soundscape in cinema, we say actually behind the Foley sounds, we have the underscoring. We have different way to describe this. And so here is a soundscape of a theatrical scene from one of these projects. Should be playing right now. So this soundscape has these characteristics here. It's night, it's a lake, it's calmness, according to the image. So the sound has to be mimetic and has to follow these characteristics and has to leave space for the performance to act, space for the body shapes to be developed, and maybe space for a narration. Okay, so this kind of affects the structure. Also, sorry, I'm talking above the sound, okay? Here we have some cues. The things that you heard, the water drift and the repetitive cricket sounds, and some, these are like audio grips that the dancers need to hear in order to make an action. So this cannot be written in an exact form like in traditional musical style. we have to develop different ways of communicating. So, can the sound, another idea is that, can the sound of a rehearsal room be the source for creating the music? What we saw and heard before was a theatrical space on a theater with scenography, etc. But what happens before that, before the performers, before the actual performers? I've seen also these days and many times performers rehearsing in a space. So the actual space of rehearsal is a creative space, not only for the dancers, but also for the musicians. It can be actually the place where the music is born. We have we actually have the fame that we compose our music in our studio, you know, away from the action, but this is not true. We have to be inspired from the actual space, from the people we work with. So we actually compose sometimes during the rehearsals. They're during the rehearsals, we are doing the recording of their sound, of the sounds they produce, of their bodies, or of sounds existing within a space. And here is an example, audio example. Should be playing right now. So this is the sound of experimenting with some materials they're going to use within a performance. There's a trampoline they were using there and extracted some sound. So the question is, can this be musical? Can it have rhythm? Can it have dynamic? Can this be actually the music? The answer, from my perspective, is yes. Can we use performance as the actual human instruments? No musical instruments. Like the bodies of the performers, they act as a source for the sound. The answer is yes, why not? Why? Because it can be inspiring, not only for the composer, but also for the performer. It creates some bonding with the actual material. The fact that you're producing a sound like we saw yesterday in my colleague's piece, producing a sound from hitting the ground, this is a percussive sound. It's a musical sound. It can be used to create music. We don't need to bring a percussion instrument for that. The body of the performer can do that. And also, very important, it creates a common language. The performer knows what this action is. He might say that this is not music, but he knows the action. He knows that there's a certain body shape that creates this sound shape. There's a body scape that creates this soundscape. So, these are some ways to represent the shapes. If these were notes, these are graphic scores. If these were notes on a pentagram, they couldn't be understood easily. You need to know classical music in order to interpret. But these shapes from classical repertoire, they actually define the shapes of the sounds, and they can be interpreted for the shapes of the body to follow. So they help with this common language. So soundscapes and sound shapes in music, they can be expressed with motion, and vice versa. As we saw yesterday in a more interactive project, the shapes of the body can create sound shapes, and body shapes, sound shapes, and soundscapes. So we have a circular approach, circular creative approach, which is very interesting. And we can say that in this case, either we are embodying the sound or we are sonificating the body. Here is another example from a physical theater work where we have sound. The characteristic of the sound is noise shapes, granularity, unrest, and waves, which gradually leads to harmony, abstraction, and some drops. And the body, accordingly, creates micro-motions, micro-shapes, and general nervousness. And then it develops to arise wavy gestures and creates a human form. So actually the form in a macro structure, the form of the sound is followed by the form of the performance. So there is a connection between music and structuring, theatrical structuring here. Sorry, can you hear that we release the sound? Okay, so we can see that there are certain characteristics in the sound that need to be followed by the performance, so they need to understand, like this is a deep sound, this is a nervous sound, this is, they just don't need to understand necessarily classical musical terms. Now we have another example, just going through a bit quickly. We have the soundscape of the deep, supposed to be below the sea in the depth. So we have water-like events, wavy shapes, and long textures. This is how the sound is described. Okay, it consists of harmonic content and notes as well, but we don't describe it like that, because the performer needs to understand a different vocabulary. It's actually borrowed from drawing. We say a deep, dark sound, so that the performer understands and makes a deep, dark, maybe, movement. So the action is here to submerge into this atmosphere. Sorry. Okay, going on. So, said so far that the performer interprets in these projects, interprets and embodies the sound. In more interactive projects, we can have the opposite, that the performer creates the sound, creates the music, okay? Becomes part of the soundscape because of the produced sounds from the body, visualizes the sounding content because the performer is a visual, has a visual existence, and we have combined expressiveness. These are important things. We all know about this. I know there are many performers here. We've been doing this for years. But the thing is actually to analyze and define better ways to communicate. Maybe we need to find the vocabulary. That's why I'm doing this presentation. Maybe we need to find a common language, written language, a common language that can be analyzed and progressed further. Because, okay, we're doing this for many years, it's fine, but we need to progress as well. So different kinds of sonifications can be vocal and gestural. The space can be a rehearsal space, moving bodies, interactivity space, ambience, or it can be any space from nature or culture, soundscapes, sounding objects, and include interactivity. These are musical elements, and they have to do both with the composer and the performer, and they have to be understood equally. Another example is the object. I call it the light. So we were in a rehearsal, and there was the scenographer and there was a director who actually tried to do exercises with the performers, and she actually told them there was some lamp like this, to concentrate on the light, because their exercise, and the sound. So this lamp was broken, it was making a funny sound. But this was very useful for performers in order to concentrate. So this was very useful for me as an idea to serve as a basic rhythmical element from the piece that we composed to be played. Why? Because they were used with this sound. This sound meant a lot to them. And when they learned that this sound was the basis for the final music, they were, enthusiastic about this, because they felt that it was their own sound. So, where is it? Of this lamp created harmonies. This was the rhythm, was taken into quantized audio processing. Actually was very helpful for the rest of the rehearsals. Okay, so next, what is important to understand, okay, this is the original sound, the sound variations, but I don't want to go very deep into that because I have to finish, okay? Same sounds, similar sounds with the trampoline in another performance. Okay, here is me into the circle. It's a funny picture, but I actually wanted to act as a performer of sound because I needed to feel how the performers do, what they do in their exercises, in their rehearsals. So I was holding a microphone and recording while being a performer, and use this sound to create the music in an equality, collaboration. Okay, I cannot do what the performers do, but I actually follow them and create the moment, capture the moment. Okay, so There are some things that we can resume for what I said. The performance can be actually the music. Performers interpret and produce the sound and vice versa. The performance space is very important for the creation of music. The music can be starting in the space. A common language needs common understanding and common practice. And maybe we have to develop a vocabulary about that. Creating together is very important. And it is the thing, actually. And this creates new language and convergence between arts. Thank you very much. Be glad to talk about anything you want. Sorry about this technical inconvenience here.
Thank you very much. So we have to call you here in order to get closer to what we do in Corfu. I learned many things I didn't know. Great. They're still seeing me? Minute. And I go back to this maybe for the sound. We are soon going to switch to Peter Nelson now, our final speaker. Yes, already here. Let me pin you, Peter.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Release pin, and you are here. Can you sound check once more?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Great, great.
Hello?
You're ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Giannis. Thanks so much to Iannis Zannos and Dana Papachristou for inviting me to participate in this. It's been a really interesting day. Attached to the fantastic performance that we witnessed yesterday evening, and I hope also this evening. And it's a performance that really made me think about the technologies that are being used here. And let me see what we can get here. Sorry, I'm just trying to share my screen with you all. Okay, it's not going to let me do that. So I'm just going to talk to you. I'm sorry. There's something in system preferences that is not going to let me do that. So, these technologies that are being used and that we've heard so much about today, technologies of mediation and communication, they come as a global phenomenon. So not only do they rely on industrially standardized components and massively distributed connection hubs and networks of physical satellites orbiting the Earth. Our expectation is that every place on Earth is communicable and every person on Earth is familiar, at least with the mobile phone and the internet. So we're no longer in the colonialist era of the metropolitan and the remote. And the global reach of these technologies really comes built into their conception and their being. So in that sense, maybe these technologies represent the first truly global language in the sense of a means of mediation and communication. So a language of touch, clicks, swipes, of likes, emojis, video clips and message chains, of URLs and algorithmically suggested links, of open source code and shared programming conventions, over and above any specific language or culture. And the interface between humans and these technologies is immersive and sensory, involving at least touch, motion, vision, sound, spatial orientation, and geographical location before any specifically cultural effects. This is markedly different from the immersive potential of previous revolutionary technologies like the book, the telegraph, and the telephone, radio and television. The artistic potential of these global digital technologies, as I think we are witnessing in this event, rests not on the generation and manipulation of audio or visual materials. Those are beautiful and engrossing, but they're really just the digital analogies and developments of quite historical techniques of artistic production. The artistic potential here rests on communication itself. And this is actually the myth of Echo and Narcissus. But in this case, the communication is between human and machine through touchscreen, sensor data, live coding. It's communication between human and human across continents via satellite data links. It's communication as a network of the human and the non-human, including the human-like in the form of interventions by artificial intelligences. So I'm going to argue here that in this scenario, communication is the artistic material. If music and dance come out of sort of the interactions between physical phenomena, animate and inanimate bodies, personae, social structures and tensions, seasons and times of day, spaces and geographical locations, all these things we've seen in these performances, digital technologies have got the potential to pool each of these things together into a different sort of network. This is a network within which the locations, the points in the network, are both real and virtual, and where communication between them is integrated across multiple forms of engagement, some perceptible, some not perceptible. In this sense, I think this is not just a contemporary riff on Marshall McLuhan's remark that the medium is the message. Communication here is not a message, but a material formed by technologies, as much as it is by human and non-human action and intention. So that's sort of an introduction to a way of thinking, and I've got a couple of comments on it. The first comment is that within this narrative, the notion of the global has a number of problematic aspects. In the first place, the global is a material embodiment of the universal. And the universal is a notion that is tainted with imperialist and colonialist histories, something that seeks to legitimate one view over others, to impose commonality based on dominance. And yet, as the anthropologist Anna Lowenhout-Singh points out, quote, "The universal offers us the chance to participate in the global stream of humanity." End quote. Global connections make the world. They're implicated in all of its diversities of life and culture. Singh writes, "Cultures are continuously co-produced in the interactions I call friction." So there's my title. The awkward, unequal, unstable, and creative qualities of interaction across difference. End quote. Indeed, you could say in that sense that dominant cultures often remain unaware of the ways in which difference and friction are implicated in their own very existence. Friction seems to me to be at the core of digital technologies, even as those technologies attempt to present us with a seamless and overarching vision of possibility and efficiency. So my second comment is that the notion of the global presents itself at the largest possible terrestrial scale, the planet Earth, up to and including the gravitational boundaries that allow for the orbit of satellites. This scale of perception implies an extraterrestrial viewpoint from which the globe appears to us both in celebrated photo images from NASA and in our imaginations as an object within our gaze. And yet, this scale is imposed by technological means and registered by very specific human agents, NASA, for example, for specific projects of world making. It's a scale that's actually quite unwieldy for everyday human engagement. We register the closeness of colleagues between Japan and Greece and Edinburgh appearing to us over the network. We don't register the distance through the trajectory of the data that comes through fiber optic cables, data hubs, landlines, satellites. As Anna Singh writes, quote, "Scale is the spatial dimensionality necessary for a particular kind of view, whether it's up close or from a distance, microscopic or planetary. Scale is not just a neutral frame for viewing the world. Scale must be brought into being, proposed, practiced, and evaded, as well as taken for granted. Scales are claimed and contested in cultural and political projects," end quote. So in that sense, communication as a technological material waiting to be formed involves a project of scale making. And this reminds me of the Greek composer and architect, we've heard about him before today, Iannis Zannos, who was fond of saying that creation is a question of scale. And by that, he meant not just relative size and proportion, but in a conscious play on words, the creation of scales in the musical sense of pitch relations and time relations. And those compositional elements Zannos created by means of his theory of sieves, where the sieve is a way of managing the continuous and the discontinuous aspects of our experience. So this is to say that scale is not just a matter of raw proportion. It includes the notions of measure and sampling. You can think of a few measures, 280 characters on X, formerly known as Twitter, 50 seconds of video on TikTok, etc. How do scale-making projects appear within digital technologies? And what are the possibilities for negotiations between different scales in order to create new perceptions and new relationships? And it seems to me that there are a number of different scales at work in this day and yesterday. So I'm just going to stick with Anna Singh for a moment to try to think about how the notions of scale and friction might relate to this work that we're looking at, the amazing dance piece from Iannis Zannos and his collaborators. Anna Singh is concerned to see how productive moments can be found within the concepts, histories, and actions that have resulted in the present emergency caused by global climate change. Like the global nature of the climate emergency, the global nature of the economic and political forces that have led to it mirror the global reach and ambition of the digital technologies that have come to dominate our culture and communication. How do you find productive moments within these narratives of global scale? Singh looks for what she calls gaps, and this is her writing again. Whenever we want to trace the limits of a hegemony, we need to look for gaps. Gaps develop in the seams of universal projects. They're found where universals have not been successful in setting all the terms, end quote. Insofar as art within the material of digital technologies has become a universal project, we need to search for those terms that have not been set, the gaps that are open, for moments of creative insight and action. One of those gaps seems to me to be what Martin Carlé and Iannis Zannos and his colleagues refer to as the frugal, making do, and in particular, making do with less, not just as a response to an ecosphere that is gasping, but also as a way of challenging habits that are formed within a dominant system. And as we've seen in the discussion and in the work, this cutting away of excess does not mean a relapse into old-fashioned, constrained or neoconservative ways. The impetus to find frugal gaps within dominant technologies reveals frictions that are productive of interaction across difference. It seems to me that this gap represented by the notion of the frugal is also a scale making and a scale translating moment. It proposes local manifestations of otherwise global resources through hacked devices, local networks, contingent data acquisitions that situate the artistic event within the intimacies of informal DIY settings. Nevertheless, these locally scaled sets of relations get translated across the scale of the global through the sharing of data between geographically distant settings in quasi-real time, where the two scales of communication are made evident within the scope of the performance. This approach to the qualities and the inequalities inherent within digital technologies is what media theorist Ksenia Fedorova refers to as tactics. Tactics imply not just a style dependent on the diversion and trickery, the hacking that allows the infiltration of otherwise solid, global, hegemonic technical infrastructures. It's also, as she writes, quote, a means of diverting and tricking the dominant system of the habitual or socially constructed self, end quote. In other words, this play with the material of communication is also a play with the ways in which that material tends to form us and mold us into its own global images. The gap of the frugal is also a means to remake ourselves within a personal scale, whose translation onto a global scale through technical means provokes precisely those frictions of awkward, unequal, unstable relationships and interactions that actually form culture. And it's perhaps only by just this sort of reforming of culture through friction in the ways that these wonderful artistic interventions make possible, that we can hope to develop narratives that fulfill the proper purposes of communication, registering our current problems and dilemmas, sharing our responses and concerns, unfolding new ways of acting and relating that respond to the totally conflicting scales across which we are challenged. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. This was an incredible ending. There's too much to say. I will unpin you now, and we have a discussion. Yeah, we have 20 minutes for discussion. Ne? Ah, okay. Yes.
Yes, we had thought in this program to give some time for our artists to speak if they wish so, because, you know, this is an event that it's about dance and technology and the body and the space. And I feel we have been talking a lot in this mini conference, and maybe our artists like Haruka Hirayama, Hideaki Sobe, Justine Goussot, Nathalie Mandila, Jun Takahashi, Asayo Hisai, maybe they would like to offer some insight on what they're doing, on how they feel about the show, or how they worked. I mean, I would be honored to present you if this is something that you... Please, 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 just... please, please. I give the floor to you. The stage is anyway your kingdom.
How do we start? I think maybe we start in chronological order, since the first person that enabled this project was Jun and Asayo. You start, and then we go in chronological order to the others. Anything you want to say about your experience or comments?
Hello, my name is Asayo, and I'm the dancer for the Izutsu piece with Iannis. And since he suggested to start this conversation chronologically, so if we start, our creation with Iannis started in 2018, when Iannis was searching for one of the Japanese dancers to cooperate with, and he was the one who received his messenger message. And first he saw that was a spam, because we did not have any mutual friends, or we did not have any information about him. And actually, Jun decided to meet him in person, and that was when we found out. This was not a spam message, so there was an actual person offering the cooperation. And that's how we met, and then we started a very basic research, because we as a dancers to move with the sensor was the very new experience. So first of all, we need to understand how the sensor works with Iannis' sound material. So I think we spent quite a lot of time researching the very simple task, like what kind of sound is more effective, what kind of movement is more effective. So we had a lot of discussion as well. And yeah, and also that was also for us the process for finding the sort of the mutual language in between the two different media. So it's been a quite challenging process. At the same time, it's an interesting process. And finally, we were offered to follow the story of Izutsu, which is one of the famous story from the No theater in Japan, which we didn't know. So first of all, we need to read through the story, and we wanted to build a sort of the narrative, in between narrative and abstract story with using the sensors. And this is the final outcome of our research. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the show last night, and then we tried to make it better, hopefully. So I think more or less about the process. And I'm not going to talk about the detail because it's taking quite a long time. So you want to say something?
Haruka Hirayama, whom we met in 19, I think, through 1918, already summer of 18, at the conference that you organized.
Sorry?
At the conference which you organized.
Okay, hello, my name is Haruka Hirayama. Now I live in Hokkaido, and I'm working at the Hokkaido Information University, which is more informatics department, but I've been teaching music, computer music there. And I met him 2020, I think, when I was in Tokyo. That time I was organizing a Tama Music Festival, and he composed music with you. What was that the first experience was or you? Not sure. Yes, yes. And I was also working with another choreographer, and she's a video artist, Bettina Hochmann. She's German, and we met and using the sensors, actually, mobile phones, and taking data, and also different approaches, creative probably approaches from Professor Zannos. Yes, but it was very interesting comparisons to the different approaches, the creative, methodologies. And we, we wrote a paper together comparing these things. Yes, that's how, we met.
Okay, so also you invited me to Hokkaido to the two residencies, and that was good in developing the common practice. And for me, I would just want to add, I learned a lot about the methodology because I am a total beginner about theater and dance, and I felt it very well. I felt it very strongly, so I tried to learn as much as possible. It was great, and I hope to learn more and also help in this way bounce back how we teach this and create this dynamic of friction, as Peter Nelson says. And the next person was Hideaki, who Haruka suggested as a hardware man and Max MSP programmer, and maybe Super Collider interest, if you want to say something, and Haruka can translate.
Hello, I'm Hideaki Sobe. 日本語ですいません。I'm speak Japanese. So, ヤニさん、いいですか？最初は僕はMax MSP を中心に自分の電子音楽作品を作ってるんですけれども、それで他のプラットフォームであるスーパーコライダーのすごい方がいるということで、ちょっと日本でお会いすることができまして、それで、お話を聞くと、センサーでいろいろなプログラミングをして、パフォーマンスをする作品を作っているというようなことでですね、いろいろこのプロジェクトにも参加させてもらって、非常に多くのものを得ることができました。特にネットワークで、データをシェアリングして、いろんな他の、メディアに対してアプローチしたりとか、あとは遠隔ですごい遠くのネットワークに対してデータを持っていくとか、そういったこともすごくとても興味深い研究をできる場をいただきました。ありがとうございます。
Okay. Hideaki Isobe, he is a composer based in Tokyo, and he's usually a Max user, but he met Professor Zannos in 3 years ago, and he heard through his friend there's a good professor using Super Collider, and he's more interested in developing sensors and maybe expanding performance practices and sort of things. And they met and exchanged ideas, and now he's really appreciating having this great opportunity, and it is very good research and opportunity for him. Yes.
And finally, while we were looking for more dancers, because we had 2 dancers leave us, one of them was Tassos Papapetridis, who got hired for a residency by Alexander Whiteley, one of the prime worldwide companies based in London. So we are actually sad, but also proud that coming from us, he could get there. So we met in May, and we caught up grounds very much, so much that I asked Justine Goussot to become my assistant in a way, and this actually happened. And her role in unifying the work was very important. So from that experience on.
Good evening. So yeah, I'm very new in this process. So I didn't have so much time to experiment so far, and I just have problematics to solve, I would say. I already experimented something with sensors 10 years back. It was a project that we made with the Research Center of Electroacoustic Music at the University of Bordeaux. But the technology was not that advanced because the music composer was just taking the data from the sensor and was making an instant composition out of it, just not that it was exactly responding to the movements I was doing. So it is really something new for me. What I found very, very interesting is how this is opening really a new dimension, because we reach a kind of cyclical conversation with the sensor, because maybe we start a movement and this is raising a sound, and so this is influencing our movement that is creating a new sound. And here we got this kind of cyclical conversation between the movement and the music. And from this collaboration we made now, I see a very big field of investigation because here there is the problematic of how we collaborate with the musician and the dancer, because here the voices of both are equal, and we have to find a methodology and a deontology of how we can collaborate together. And so here there are many things to find, definitely. And as a choreographer, I find very interesting this thing with the sensors, because we are always looking for a new way to find new kinetic movement patterns to get out of our habits and what we are used to do. And I found very interesting the exploration of the sensor, because if you really try, for example, to raise sounds, it is taking you somewhere else. It is kind of surprising you, and it is somehow, as well for us choreographers, a new methodology to raise new kinetic languages, definitely. And I found as well in this, what I've been trying so far, because I'm a musician as well, and so I found very interesting to question for myself, what is my posture, my relationship with the sensor, because there are, for me, 2 postures. There is the one of the dancer that is here to serve a choreographic purpose, but we can say as well that the dancer could serve the sensor in order to execute a music score. And so here it's like a depossession of our work as choreographer in order to execute sounds. And it is as well taking us somewhere else somehow. And yeah, I think you agree with that. There is this relation, this conversation between 2 postures that I call the body instrument and the dancing body. So it's really 2 different postures. And I'm really willing to keep exploring that, because I feel that there is a huge ground for finding new languages, and yeah.
I would like to ask one question. Yeah. Is there any difficulty with working these new sensors and between dancers and musicians?
Is this a question to everyone?
From my side, I found sometimes, it's different. What we dancers focus and musicians focus, sometimes different, and sometimes conflict. Yeah, and this is also nice, nice reason to something coming out, but something trouble. Then I would like to ask.
Okay. To compose this work, I started because the sensor I this time used the M5 stick, which is very small sized ready-made one, and this is a new first time for me to use. Before I was using the mobile phone, but it's now too big, and this is small and maybe easier for. I hope it was. How do you feel? It's easier to touch and move your. Does it affect any movement for you?
Yeah, this is okay. Just the tic-tac box was an issue. So.
I see. But it only battery without battery just work 1 hour or less than 1 hour. So we also put battery, and it may be a bit heavier. I don't know to move. But it is very important key issue how it must work to control sound parameters, of course. Then, so in a way, of course, sensor define gestures. Sensor how it works define, even if they maybe want to very flexible gestures, but if, the sensor does not, really follow, or it's not detective enough, or also system problems, also a lot of data, so which is too many to process everything, or this kind of thing is I think, define, and that's why I try to focus on creating the system first. But on the other hand, dancers clearly create gestures. I want to use this gesture, but and can you put sound on that? And that was a bit challenging point, how, to transform the gesture to the sensor and the music. But both ways we did, though the collaboration time was limited. However, first I prepared the sensors and attached and tried, and she also hopefully get some inspirations from the sensor and things. But the other day, I just built the sound. Then maybe you create some without sensors and created some gestures, and it also feedback me to how to use sensors. Yes, maybe it's nice to hear from your side.
Again, Idaki, you want to say?
難しかったところですけど、やはりダンサーと、作曲家の時間の流れの考え方の違いというのが今回もいろいろリハーサルを重ねて、感じたんですけれども、センサーを使って、プログラミングして音を練習で作っていくに従ってできる動きと、出せる音というものがなんとなく分かってくる感じがしたので、その中でその範囲でというよりかそれが最終的なアウトプットになるんだということで、非常にそこから自分のなんて言うんでしょう、なんかサウンドもすごく作り込んでいったというような感じです。
through this collaboration, he very much felt that the way of grasping time, that's recognition of time is very different between composers and dancers. And also, okay, and through collaborations, dancers try to fit, after practice with sensors, and how they can learn how to manipulate parameters of sound, and also composers learn how they use bodies as an instrument. And after that, we, both ways to approach, and he also learned, and we both learned vice versa, and created, we felt. Sorry.
It's time for the audience, if there are comments or questions. Colleagues? Martin, or? Yes.
I found one aspect very interesting to hear about, that you're exploring new ways to deal, or how to work with your own body, with your own long year trained or kind of habits that you have in movements and style and so on. And then comes this sensor along, and all of a sudden you have to adopt. You have to kind of do something about it, deal with it. And it felt like a certain type of self-alienation that you welcome. It's not something that is imposed on you, but nonetheless, it's alienating. It's kind of creating a distance to your own body, to yourself. And I think this is a very concrete aspect where it becomes very graspable, what beforehand has been coming to us in a storm of elaborate and very enjoyable theoretical stream of consciousness that we had from our video guest, Peter Nelson. And here it becomes very concrete. He talked about at the very end of this aspect, this very important aspect of creating of a self as, again, the cradle of something that can become a culture. So I see that this alienating aspects that you clearly identified is an agent of this process.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree, and also this process for me, I'm still, I don't still have the right word to explain what was it about. I'm still processing by myself as well. And, but I think the most important thing for me and for us as the dancers was to find the way to deliver our material to the live audience, because we are aiming to have the live performance, not the recorded items. So I think in that aspect we have a lot of difference between you as a composer or the programmer and we as a live performer. So in that sense, maybe come back to Hideaki's comment, we have a different sense of time, I think. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted, this is very right, just just this thing is something to deal with. We don't work the same way. We don't work the same time. I mean, and here, just that is a methodology to find and a kind of communication to find between us. But I think that what you said about this self-depossession is not only for the dancers, it is as well for the musicians, because we all have to compromise. And I want to say that because we've been working very differently for the two pieces. Mr. Zannos, and they have much more time to really work narrowly in this relationship with the sensor and the sound and the movement. We didn't have this time. So the result is very different because the choreography was more fixed from the beginning, and they had somehow to adapt. And of course, after it started the conversation between us and something else raised from that. But it was a base already, and they had to come and to, so this thing is concerning the musicians as well sometimes. It is concerning all of us. I mean, how we must accept to get dispossessed from what we want or what we used to do to go to something else in this dimension where both, yeah, it's like coming like one language somehow. It's not two separated, it's just one, and we have to find how we compromise with that.
Any other questions? Is it time? I think it is time for us to prepare for the last show. Yes, one more question from Satoru or from Peter or from whom?
Oh, yes, I had a sort of comment. Sorry, on the last bit.
Okay.
I don't want to prolong this. It's just you've talked about movement and about sensing and about sound, but there was a very nice presentation earlier from from Apostolos
Lymperopoulos, yes.
Thinking about the mapping between them. And I suppose as a comment, one of the things I found so impressive about the performance last night was the mapping between the sound and the movement. Because there's a problem that is much discussed, that if the sound is too close to the movement, it's like Mickey Mouse. And if the sound is too far from the movement, you don't see the connection.
Yeah, we had this. This was always
But somehow last night you managed to find a perfect connection between sound and movement. And I'd be interested if you have some thoughts on how you managed to do that.
Well, if I may just close this, it seems to me that it's through experience as a performer, and it takes the holistic sense of the whole show, of how you work. If you're very experienced with that, then you go to another level. It's a little bit like small human magic. That's how I experience it. Because I've programmed the algorithms, but I don't know what happens, and then I see what they do with these, and I say, well, I can't explain it. So that's what I hope happens with all the groups. And that's maybe what inspires us in future work as well. So we have more time to do our magic. Yeah, I call this magic. Okay, let's finish there. Thank you.
I'm cut off. Yes, thank you for being here. I wanted to say that our show starts at 7:30. We would be delighted to see you here. Some of you, I know that they're staying, but I'm just informing for the other ones. Thank you so much again.